All right, I'm here today with my good friend Ellyn Hefner. Ellyn and I met in the fall of 2012.
Really?
Really? Yeah, because we graduated the class of 2013. So it would have been right around August. I guess it was August. We met in August to do our orientation.
That's right.
So
That's right.
I don't know that we officially met. We were probably all just scared of not knowing anything about what we were doing at the time. So, but Ellyn and I went through Partners in Policymaking together. Ellyn, tell a little bit about your story. How did you get into advocacy work? Because I know that's kind of what you do, but that's just kind of let them know a little bit about you.
Oh, okay. Well, great. I can't believe it's been that long since I've known you. But 6 years, 8 years goes by that quickly. We haven't changed a bit. But how I got involved in advocacy was after William was born, my youngest. I have 3 kids. That when I was in the hospital, and I say that this is a present day story that I talk about all the time, that people told me 3 things when I was in the hospital. They knew that William had a brain injury, and they didn't know what his future life was going to be. They told me, get into a support group, get into early intervention, sooner starts great, and don't save any money in his name. And so I did the first 2 things. I did all 3 of them, but the first 2 were really natural for me. So the first one, you find other people in, as we call the disability world, the DW, and you find those supports where you can. That some great support groups that you feel really comfortable, and then there's others that you're like, I'm not there. That. And then early intervention was how I got my start in advocacy. William was, oh my gosh, he was like 8 weeks when they first tested him. To be involved with Sooner Start. And Sooner Start is Oklahoma's early intervention program from birth to 3 years. And I heard early intervention, and it took me about a week of wringing that flyer in my hands before I figured out it was something to read. And when we got him tested, I was so impressed with not only the person who came into my home, but with the program itself, because I was already a mom of 2 kids. I thought I knew it all. And I did, to an extent. I had a child that I had to raise as my child and connect with him. But there were other things that I didn't know. And so I was all in on it. And they told me, hey, we're having a Sooner Start Day at the Capitol. William was like 3 months old at that time. And I went in, and I couldn't believe how exciting it was that the Capitol was right down the street. That I could go there and I could knock on my senator's door. And I remember when I went in there and I told him all about early intervention, he's just like, nope, I don't think I'm into that. I don't want to spend a lot of money. I'm kind of used to not spend a lot of money on programs. And I said, this is a game changer. It'll save money later on. But each year I would go back. Well, not each year. I'd go back a couple times a session. And he would say that, at that time, no one would bring in their kid, and he could see the difference. So with the 3 years that I had known him up there, I don't know why I didn't realize I could advocate, but I did. And then with that, I got a job. I was put on some committees, and of course I said yes. And then I was hired at Oklahoma Family Network. And so Oklahoma Family Network got me introduced to more people, more things that were involved with disability, the goods and the bads, and what was good for our family. And working there for several years. But Partners in Policymaking was one of those things that put it all together for me. So that the voice is important, how you use your voice, how to work with people, how to talk about my son in a room, things like that really was great. And there's several mentors that I learned and that I met and picked up from, and I still am in contact with today.
So one of the things that you do now, we met with Partners, but we also work together at OFN, and I mean we've advocated together at the Capitol. all of that. But when you talk about what you're working on now is the
Oh,
able um, accounts. For
yeah.
someone who doesn't, and I'll be honest, I don't know that much about it. For somebody that doesn't know, for a parent, you and I are discussing, you do trainings around the state. And
Mhm.
so we're discussing doing one of those trainings in our area. What is it that you're working on, and why should parents need to know this?
So to step back a little bit, I able it's federal legislation and it started in 2014. That law was passed. But to step back a little bit, you know, I was so involved with, OFN. I was health coordinator, at hospitals, did help do teach pre-professionals about family-centered care. I thought I knew everything. And then I became a widow. And then our joint plan of what we wanted for not only the two older ones and William turned to just weigh real heavy on me. And so planning for the future became really important. I quickly got a trust together and made sure that I asked those difficult questions to my sister. Will you, if something happens to me, be the person for William his whole entire life? You know, it's not just for a little bit. That one's going to need someone that's always checking in on him. And her comment was, why not Evelyn and Harry and his siblings? And I said, well, Harry's still young and Evelyn's still young, and Harry wants to be a ballet dancer and Evelyn wants to do pre-med. So is it right for me to say stop, and take care of your brother? Or should I give them, as we talk about in partners, option A or B, or choices? And so I went back to school, and the reason I went back to school is after my trust was done, and then William's special needs trust, I learned that it was written in the worst possible way, that Evelyn and Harry would end up with a huge tax burden. And what I was leaving to them, or thought that I was leaving to them, was not going to happen. So I went back to school, and I started looking at what options were out there in Oklahoma. And there's no one that does the type of job with the certification I have in Oklahoma right now. And that's good and bad. The good part is I know disability world people. I know how to talk to people. I'm very sensitive to the rights of people who have a disability, and I want to encourage independence and their good life, right? We've done videos on good life. And so that's good. That's a good part. Bad is I'm the only one. And so who else is talking to some of these people about their plans for the future? Well, in 2018? Yeah, 2018. Oklahoma got its own ABLE account, and we call it OK Stable. And we partner with Ohio, which is called Stable. And so ABLE accounts are Achieving a Better Life Experience. That's the name of it. And, that one comment that was made to me when I had William in the hospital about not saving any money towards his name, I mean, I totally dismissed that because I was in crisis mode. How do I make him thrive? How do I connect with them was totally part of all of my mind. But not saving him any money, I just automatically did that without asking any questions. Whereas the other two, I was putting in some 529 money, which is a college savings account. And so the reason why is because they were trying to protect William's benefits at his small age. Because when he hits 18, and the benefits that we are concerned about are supplemental security income and Medicaid, those are really the ones that are most impactful on adults' lives who have a disability, or kids as well. And so I was protecting his benefits by not saving any money towards his name. And that asset amount that they can only have, they have to stay under this asset limit, which is $2,000. And so that's pre-ABLE, okay? Now after ABLE, we have an account that I can put money in and save for William's future. And he can start saving. He'll still have his benefits. Social Security knows about it. They can ask about it. Medicaid, they can ask about it, but they can't tell you what to spend it on, or if you're spending on it for purposes that are right for that person. It's an excellent way for me as a mom to encourage William's life that he has right now. So if you think about it, William enjoys, we don't have a wealthy life, but whatever he needs, I can give to him because I have income. If I go away, my income goes away, and so does his, per se, because his needs won't be met specifically if we don't have some sort of extra, something that we can put towards, something that we can use. He does have a special needs trust, but there are things that he cannot purchase or use that money for: food and housing. So think about losing me. I'm kind of a big deal in his life because I'm his mom. Think about losing me and then having your whole life change, where you live, what you can and cannot eat. And I'm not saying he's got a silver spoon in his mouth, but his uncle is an executive chef, so he knows what good food is, right? He doesn't have to pay for it. But what if he had to pay for it? Will he be allowed to eat the things that he enjoys? Will he be allowed to go on a vacation? I use the example that he likes Disneyland. I do not. We've been many times, but now he can save so he can go on that vacation, right? And that's that same indifference that we learned in Partners, right? It's same that he can achieve goals that he wants to achieve financially if he learns how to save, and then different because he's got to do it a different way than we do and continue to have the benefits that he needs. Now, I don't know if he's going to need Medicaid as much. He doesn't really, that's not his big goal. But if he's not going to have a living wage job, the benefits are going to become important, right? So he's gonna have to have it, unless he finds someone that thinks he's super fantastic, that he can put a puzzle together from bottom to top. I don't know. It might be out there that he gets a nice income from that if we find it. But if not, then we're going to sort of have to lean on some benefits, right? So able accounts, or as okay stable accounts, are going to become a big part of that financial planning. I'm using big words, but all it is saving for his good life. Just like I do with the other two. I'm giving them a head start on their college with their college savings, with their savings accounts that they have as well. They put their money in it after grandma gave them money, or after their grandma died, they got a little bit of money. It's not a good idea for me to put that money in my account because it's his. And so how do we save it without hiding money? We do generational wealth. Generation is a big word as well. But instead of hiding it or hoping that someone that we give the money to will provide for William, we can do this legally. It's a legal way to protect benefits and keep money growing and have it be legal.
I think the thing that people may or may not realize, now I know that some parents, especially if their kids are getting older, starting to get into transition age, they're starting to think about these things, or maybe they're not, but I think what people may not realize is that you can't just put money away for somebody because the government says you can't do that. You can, but it'll affect other aspects of their income, if you will, or of their life.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
There's other good ways for able too. It's record keeping that you don't have to record keep. So, if William gets a job, hopefully he can put a little bit more money into an able account instead of keeping it in this savings account where it mingles with benefit money, right? Because benefit money has its own rules too. And so if we put savings in a savings, we can do what we want with that because those are called able distributions, right? The distributions are called quality disability expenses. And it's one of those laws that I love, that it's written broadly, that works with our sort of idea of, achieving that better life experience in the way that we've been taught or we think about. So I don't have to think about my two kids differently than I think about William, that it's just done differently, but we can do it. And now we're finding some really great things. You know that my friend, but she has some group homes and she's got a lot of great adults who live in these homes, and they're working on budgets because they found out that, and I've told them about it, you just can't put money into these accounts once, because like adults and other people with savings accounts, there's a tiny fee, but that's good because we want our our kids and our adults who have a disability to be a part of the culture and the world, not just poor and separate, right? We want them to pay the minimal fee so that they can gain the greatness of having savings. Um, so she's working with these adults and they're being able to dream about what they want to do. One couple bought a house. They were never able to gather up enough down payment for a house because we have this disability world called spend down. You get close to that 2,000 asset, and then all of a sudden you have to buy another recliner that dips you below. And so instead of wasting money, millions of dollars, our family members and the friends that we know with disabilities have had to spend the money on things that they don't need instead of saving for things that they might need that are bigger. Some adults are saving for cars. How great is that they can put a big down payment on it? Some are even taking care of some credit debt where you think that your little bit of money isn't going to be able to be applied to anything that you have as debt. But then you start saving and learning how to do that, right? And so it's exciting for me to think about all the things that Able is going to teach, because now we're doing it. So our special ed program, where my son spent many years in, that I'd always say money math is the only kind of math I want him to know, but they wouldn't teach him because they too were trying to protect his unyet conceived benefits. And so now we're having to go back and teach some money math, and it's exciting because I want him to know what the money's worth. I want him to be able to learn about a budget. I want him to be in charge of himself with a little help, right? His math isn't his strong suit, but if he has an understanding of, two movies that look like this could equal this amount of money, I'm okay with that. If he understands that if he gets to a certain limit of all of his food, that he can't purchase more than that because he's on a budget. And it's exciting to me that I think that our adults, friends, family members with disabilities are going to be able to save more than the typical people, right? Those people that don't have a disability, because what they want to do is they've been granted something they've never had before, saving money. And I work with businesses who have employees who have a disability to use to do a direct deposit so that they can save the money before it's in their checking account so they can spend it. So it's like I'm going to quote it because it's not a retirement. They can't have a retirement, but it's sort of like that. They can't afford to have a 401k. So to have this be a possibility is employers are really keen on it. Employers also who has an employee that has a child who has a disability, who offers direct deposit for 529s, also do a direct deposit into these ABLE accounts for saving for their child with a disability. Some employers will match a 529, and we have asked them to match for an ABLE account. So it's kind of exciting in all these things that we can do. And it's just the main problem we have with ABLE is outreach. Now, I do outreach for the state treasurer, Randy McDaniel. The ABLE account is housed within his office, just like the 529. He has a couple of us, he calls ambassadors, just a big fancy name, but it means that I do a lot of this kind of talking. But I don't make any money from these. What I do is I'm financial plans for families who have kids with disabilities. I help them find people who can get them a will, number one, and needs trust or a trust started for their child. I help them plan, and I also help them do in the right way of leaving money to their child with a disability. A lot of financial planners will tell you not to do it because they can't, but that's because they haven't talked to me yet. And so there's ways that you can leave money to beneficiaries, including your child who has a disability. There's just some tiny things that you have to know. Most lawyers don't understand it, even though they say they might write a trust, a special needs trust. There's tax benefits that I help families understand, things that they never would have thought that would be a deduction. I can help them with that as well. So finding all those right things that can tie into saving money so they can plan for their child with a disability, is what I do with families. And ABLE's a part of that. Has to be, because it's transactional, and a special needs trust is not transactional.
All of this wasn't possible a couple years ago, but thanks to yourself and a handful of parents who decided that this was something that was necessary, we now have this. Can you talk about how that came about and what that entailed, kind of you guys going to the Capitol and advocating for this?
So I wasn't a part of the initial ABLE. I knew about it, but back in those times, I was going through a huge shift in my life, and so I paid attention. I didn't go up to our Capitol, but whenever someone told me to ask, my legislator to do something, I did it. So was that part of the voice, but I didn't go. And our friend Doris, she was the one who went up there with a bunch of people and said, "Hey, this is important." And the senator, I think it was Senator Treat, that helped her with this. But the federal legislation in 2014, it was set up. I keep saying 2014. I've done this there's so many times I want to make sure that I'm saying the right. Yeah, it was 2014. That advocates went up to, they said, we don't like these limits on our kids. And so they were the ones, and I think it was 6 or 7 years that they kept going up for federal legislation that said, we don't want our family members to live impoverished. We want to give them an idea of what it's like to be able to save, and to dream a little bit, right? So the advocates just kept going and finding those people that would listen. And then ABLE was born in 2014. And then here in the state, in Oklahoma, there were several advocates, Doris being one of them, like I said, was adamant about this being passed. She's still a real good part of it because she knows all of the history. What I did was, I remember in 2018 when we got ours. So we're still really new. It's only 2020, but it was May, and it was in the Blue Room. We know the Blue Room up at the Capitol, and there were the people from Ohio who we are together with this bigger group, came to talk about the opening of the ABLE of OK Stable. So I'm listening, and I hear this guy, he's the deputy director of the account, and he said that he used to work with people who have a disability. He was part of the provider side of it. And I went up to him and I said, thank you for, I would have been a little leery if you weren't a parent or someone who understood. And I'm glad that you had that experience, because I think you're going to do a great job with helping us in Oklahoma. Well, we get some legislation passed, and then, you stop hearing about it. And then I start thinking, well, this is part of the work that I do. How can why isn't this account growing? And so I started talking with lawyers who had no idea about it. And even though I could talk about ABLE, I didn't have really the treasurer. I didn't really talk with him about it. And so I can't go do anything rogue, right? That would not be right. So I called Doug Jackson and I said, hey, I don't know if you remember meeting me, but I met you, at the room. He goes, oh yeah, you asked me, hey, he said that I said it in a kind of a pushy way. I don't believe that at all. I think I'm kind. But he said that I said, hey, what do you have to do with disability that you can come up here? I don't think I said it like that. But he did remember me. And I said, when's the last time you've been to Oklahoma? And he goes, it's been a while. I need to come out there and do some outreach. And I said, do some CLE for me, some continued education for some lawyers. I'll set it up. And then you tell me who you want to meet, and I'll set up those meetings. And he's like, who are you? And so I told him who I was. And so then I introduced myself with the treasurer, got him involved. And they were so excited that it started to kind of pick up, that we started getting some traction on getting meetings. Now agencies know about ABLE, which is good. Having Doug come in and talk about it is great. He's a great guy. But myself and Roseanne Duplan and Angela Downley are ambassadors for the ABLE account. That just means that the treasurer lets us talk about it. And this is in my wheelhouse because it's what I do. I help families with 529s as well. So I know all the ins and outs, and I know how to get questions. I'm not afraid to ask those important questions. But it's so now it's starting to pick up a little bit where we're getting more attention with Able, and that's awesome. I think it's the best kept secret, but like I said, it's the outreach. Number one, we've told families for years not to save money, and they're going to believe the state treasurer when he goes out, or the deputy treasurer when they go out to talk to families. Not likely, you know. They count on the benefits. Either if a person who uses Medicaid to get up in the morning and get out of bed and get himself to work, that he's just going to say, "Oh, I can spend over that asset amount." Not so easy. Now we have testimony. Now we have people. Now we have parents talking about it, and so it's a little bit easier to talk to a parent about and ask those questions. It doesn't. I would say 1 out of 4 families that I talk to about Able, there are tears, because we're talking about saving for the future of our child when we're not here. And I know it's difficult. I get tingles all over because when I asked my sister, I was afraid she was going to say no. And so having those important, tough questions are all kind of, you know, where it's all together. And so it's nice that we get the trust of the state treasurer's office to go out and do this. And then my friend Doug Jackson, I called him. I'll just say Oklahoma's trailblazers on this, because we called and said, adults with disabilities are getting stimulus checks. Could this be an Able, okay, stable deposit? And so he was like, I said, I want to do a webinar. I want to connect with families. And he said, okay, let's put something together. So him and I have done this little horse and pony show, or dog and pony show, or whatever. And it's been sort of used throughout the other states because it's kind of good. It lets people be okay to ask questions and have them answered. And with Wanda Felty, she's a new ambassador. She's fantastic because she brings another story to this as a parent who, with her in her life, where I always knew from my parents, they taught me how to save. And my late husband was really big on it. And so that was natural to us. It didn't matter if we didn't have a lot of money, we knew that we had to save the money. We pay ourselves first. But in Wanda's lifestyle, she had no idea about savings. And so we started having a conversation about what savings looks like. And she has some excellent stories that she contributes. And then Roseanne Duplan, she comes in there and talks about some of the legal side of it with families. She's our big questioner, right? Our RBG that will listen to things and go, I'm not sure if that's right. And then we'll do some fact checking on it, just so that we as parents and professionals can say the right and correct things to parents, because we don't want to lose that trust. And so there's a big team of us that work with the treasurer's office. They do not have a staff that really is looking at helping with outreach. So it takes all of us, right, with advocacy, that we get this word out.
Yeah, that's there's a lot to that, and I think the fascinating part, besides the fact that we can do this now, is the fact that it took parents just basically going out and advocating and talking. I don't think people understand, and you and I know this because we've been through partners, but your voice is more important than you think it is, and you can make a difference in the world. You just got to go out there and do it, you know, and sometimes we're afraid to do that because we're not sure. I don't know if it's because we're afraid of rejection, or we think that they're not going to listen, or but they're just people, you know. The legislators and the policymakers are people, and they don't know how to do what's best for other people unless you tell them.
Yeah.
That makes sense, you know?
Oh yeah. So yesterday I did a webinar for the Oklahoma Estate Planning Commission. So it's a whole bunch of lawyers. You know, a lot of lawyers are listening in. It's nerve-wracking, and I was a little anticipatory anxiety. You know, because that just means that what I'm saying, it's important. You know, that you get that little kind of jittery stuff. But I know more than they do about this. You know, what they know, they've read and they just put aside. You know, and and I definitely know this because I got a lot of feedback from it yesterday. More than one lawyer saying, the stories that you told, I didn't know. You know, they looked at it as just another obstacle with them, with their clients who they do special needs trust with. They did not look and hear the story of the help, and that why they need help when it comes to taking care of in a great way adults who have a disability that are children of ours as parents when we're planning for their future. And so it was really great to hear that that we there are parents out there that tell a story about their child that one of the best phrases I know is that would keep them from having friends. And so I always want to protect William's, my son William's, his ability to make friends. So making sure that when I present or talk about the things about Abel, that I make it in a good light. Even with the comment of Disneyland, I don't like it. He does. And so it tells a little bit more about that, about great. I don't say anything about the things that, or lead with anything that would cause him to not be able to make a real solid friendship. And so when even lawyers hear about me talk about, or anyone hears me talk about my kids, they're individuals, and disability is a reason maybe that I do my job, because William was born with a disability, but that isn't all he is. Right now with COVID, I've got a little bit of a headache with him, but that's good, because that I'm not really focusing on the worry of his future or the worry of what's next, so that I can feel all those emotions.
Tell us about William. What's he like?
Oh my gosh, my kids gave me the best Mother's Day present. And in our family, we like fire. So we had a controlled fire. It's very reminiscent of when their dad was alive. You know, we have this big fire pit, and we burned a lot of wood that we chopped down, did yard work. And then that evening, it was led by William singing show tunes for musicals, the best. So he can match up in any trivia contest about musicals. So that's one of his pluses. And putting a puzzle together from bottom to top, I don't know how he does that. But he also he doesn't go to special ed anymore. I worked really hard to keep all of my kids, I wanted to go through the same experience. And because he was in special ed and the other two went to this same kind of school that I did growing up, and so they were separated. All of their days off were separated. And so it took a long time, but I advocated for William to go to my old high school, and they opened up a program. So he spent his freshman year in a regular school, in a program that gave some more support. And so he was only the third or fourth person to go through this inclusion program. And with William, they had to put in some more supports that they thought they were going to. He's very social. He's very, his memory is very spot on. And people like that, right? When you remember things about him. And so it's easy to meet people and be social. And so the expectations of what he could do were really high. And William learns differently. And so to help put those supports in, it was a struggle the first couple months. And I told him it's going to be really difficult the first couple months for you to a little bit you're going to support and teach William. And then after those 2 months, it's been nothing but great. Even with the distance learning in the computer, it was a little bit rough on what they were expecting William to turn in for homework. And he showed them what he could do. And so everything shifted when they listened to his voice. So if anything, he came from his mom, who's kind of outspoken. So he's kind of outspoken as well, but in a kinder way, maybe. He's loving staying at home. His siblings are home, and he really loves that. Loves pets. Trying to look for him to a vet that would take him on as just a volunteer position, turning maybe into a job. but he does have a job this summer when he turns 16, because my brother, who owns a Chick-fil-A, is going to hire him. And he's not gone through the application yet, but he's perfect in that Saturday morning they're going to start him in the greeter with older people that come, hopefully after COVID, so it'll be in August, that he can help refresh drinks, and hopefully they won't cover up his smile with the mask, but hopefully we'll get him into that working. He's looking forward to it, and that's a huge shift. In the past, he didn't want to work, so he's a great kid.
I usually ask, who are your mentors? Who were your mentors? Who are people that you've looked up to in the advocacy world?
So in the advocacy world, man, I got a lot of people that I rub shoulders with that I just think are fantastic. Thinking that I'd never be able to call one of them a friend is now a friend. Diana McCalmont, one of those that, and I tell her I love her all the time. She lets me express those frustrations I have, whether within the DW disability world or not, and I really love that. Roseanne Duplan, Wanda Felty, these are friends. Look up to them. Erin Taylor, she was the one who called that I got into. I think I was in her first partners class with you, and she really has that nonstop sort of thinking about what's next. And I think it taught me and gave me the ability to think next too. Of course, my mom is a huge advocate. Even though my mom's in heaven, everything she taught me about being a mom that's the only mom I know to look at. So it really helped me raising William, because he was a child that I had to love, and give everything to. Disability was that extra I had to figure out, and how to work that with a part of how it was all going to turn out. And so I always say that as well. There's many other people, but if we're just looking at the DW, Angela Donnelly, oh, where would I be without that one? That one always brings me right down to the ground. Heather Pike, one of the nicest, and the good Tara Hood, who I met and then I re-met and really thought that there were some similarities in how we're same and different too. There's a lot of advocates out there that do things differently. Learned a lot from her as well. But all these people, I don't want to leave everyone. Oh, how could I forget Nancy Ward? So Nancy Ward has forgotten more about voting history than I'll ever learn. And actually, her and Renita and David Bridges, they are going to teach William how to ride the bus. And we just got a plan together before COVID hit. And it might not have been safe for William to go on a bus where he's a little bit more compromised with his immune system. So we're still planning on doing it, but I don't know anything about riding the bus. And those guys are going to be mentors with me because they ride the bus all the time. And I just love it when they say things like, I can't believe you don't know how to do this. Like, they're very kind of sarcastic towards me. Like, you think you know everything, Ellyn? And it's like, no, I told you I don't know about bus riding. And so that they have that great attitude, understanding. Oh, definitely. Those guys are my mentors as well. There's so many I'm missing out. I hate naming people.
Yeah, well, that's good. A lot of them you've talked about, we've already had on. I've got Donnelly coming up next week. She's going to do an interview, and Diana has been on. Wanda was my first one.
Okay.
Yeah, so I had Ann on, and at the time of us doing this, I haven't posted it yet. I've got a few in the hopper waiting. So I've got a lot of them. I'm trying to get Erin, but trying to get her nailed down, and that's a little hard.
Well,
but
she's fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, but even, how could I forget Jim Nicholson? So Jim Nicholson.
You're probably the fourth or fifth person in these interviews to talk about Jim Nicholson. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, he actually was for someone who couldn't find, like in our group, there's a lot of family members who had a child with autism, which is fine. William's disability is there was no one, there's one person in Oklahoma who's got the syndrome he has. And so you try to look for those things. And when he came up and talked about the history of disability, I totally forgot what it was. Does that make sense? So it wasn't just an individual sort of thing, it was the thing. And that really made me grow leaps and bounds. And actually, you're reminding me to check in on him. He's been an ally with me through stuff that we've done together in the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City with the Catholic World, and help moving that forward so William can go to school. And I appreciate him being an ally, definitely.
Yeah. What advice would you give to parents to advocate for their families, and what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Advice for families with advocacy. I find those people that, that you work with, that you can listen to, that you definitely can listen to. My voice probably isn't always the right one to be spoken, and there's others that can do it. So you have to have this kind of trust too. The trust too that you can say something and someone's not going to say that's not right. So finding all those people that you can be yourself and move forward with is great. I feel that I found them. I think a support group's really helpful. So I've found those people that have definitely been through with me, not just with disability, but through that other friendship stuff. So find a support group, find those people you can work with. Take partners in policy making. A lot of that goes with it too. We don't judge people who haven't been in partners in policy, but you can tell those who have. Does that make sense? It's different. There's a few that I go, what did you say that for? You took partners in policy making, but everyone's got their voice, right? And partners in policy helps you define that, to carve that out, to make it more concise, as I've been long-winded today.
No, that's absolutely true.
What was the next question?
Best piece of advice you've ever received?
Don't stop. Don't stop.
It's good.
And it's even if I'm wrong in some areas, I'm really good at saying that I'm wrong. I make mistakes all the time, but man, I'm learning because I'm not stopping. And I would also say that having other advocates really love and care for you is also helpful. When you are really down and you know that you can't stop, my son William's still alive. I got to still keep advocating for him, and they're right there saying that they care, and it helps. Definitely helps.
Yeah, I think as people hopefully can tell from these interviews, because we talk about the same people, or we, have the same mentors, or we run in the same circles, if you will. I was talking to Ann in her interview, and it's amazing how close this network is of advocates. Even though I'm 3 hours away from you guys, it's still, when we go to the city, it's just one big group, and I value that friendship. I value your friendship, because you and I, I think because we went through partners the same time, it's kind of, we have that whole class was really special. Sam, I see him at the DD Council meetings and stuff, but I think we have that bond together. But you and I, we worked on our final projects kind of together, and bounced ideas off of each other. And so I think there was a bond there, because with you were just questioning everything that I was doing, and I needed that, because to me, I just had this big idea, and it was like, oh, it's going to happen. Well, but you were questioning, why would this happen, or why would you do it this way, and why couldn't you do it this way? And I really like that. So I needed
That's
that.
the first time I've heard that you really know that people, well, because I always look and see if it all works together. And, and plus, you had your heart set on it too. I'd hate for it not to work out if you didn't see all the angles. It needed it. Eastern Oklahoma needed you. And so how do you make that all still work and sustainable? You're doing it.
So far, so good, you know. But just want to say thank you. Thank you for your friendship over the years. Thank you for helping, and we definitely will work on getting this as a training here. So for any of those parents out there that are watching this that are interested, I think it's something that's well needed, and so we will set that up. But thank you for talking to me today.
Thank you so much. It's good to see you. It's good to hear your voice as well. And I appreciate you asking me to talk about this. It's fantastic.
Absolutely.